it's only really because obviously we were sat fairly low down, weren't we? We weren't very high up in the stand. And it was only actually on second replay of watching her second try, you realise how good a try that was. It was absolutely outstanding, I thought. Without doubt, my individual highlight of the game. It was a fantastic finish.
Oh yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. What I would also say is the first three tries, all the tries in the first half, really involved good sweeping passing moves, which
they did.
For a final, especially when I think back to the women's final in the Challenge Cup this year, I know it was a rainy day in Bolton, that was, but I don't feel like we got much open play in that game, other than the try that broke it apart. There wasn't a lot of good execution of passing plays and passing movements, but in this game it did feel like the passing game was a little bit more. You saw middle forwards from both sides getting involved in passing, which I would probably pick out from Castleford. Emma Slow off the bench did quite a lot of that, and Amy Johnson did quite a lot of that for the Rhinos as well in a similar way. Was there any other players that stood out for you, Alan?
It's really noticeable when you're actually watching it, and particularly because obviously you know the name a bit more now, how Courtney Hill basically pulled that team around the park, sometimes literally. A lot of these kind of women they're still young. They're still very raw. They've got the physical abilities to play, but they're still raw in terms of their knowledge of the game. And it's taking an older head to kind of really organise them. And she's without question the most significant influence on that lead side, and probably is keeping them calm, because they were down at half time, and they conceded two very early scores, but they didn't panic at any point, so that they I did like the fact that obviously on the back of her shirt it says Sea Hill, and it says she definitely had chill through that game. She was very, very cool through that entire thing. So that's obviously the second name. But Fran Goldthorpe. I should mention that I used to work with her mum.
Yeah.
so it was really nice. So we ran into each other accidentally at the Challenge Cup final, and I had no idea that she was playing. We talked about rugby league, but at work before, but I had no idea that she had a daughter who was playing. Again, a young kid kind of just coming into the
how old is she? 16, 17?
She's 16?
Yeah.
You think how many of these players are 16, 17, 18?
Wow. It was Caitlin Beavers' 18th birthday, wasn't it? And one of the pieces of skill execution that I think these amateur women need to work on a bit is catching. Catching the kicks. But Beavers made no mistakes in this game, did she? With the kicks, either high or dribble through. She was flawless.
Yeah.
I thought she was really good. Beavers at fullback. I mean, Hill, as you mentioned before, was sort of the class act in terms of the skill level. But I thought Beavers had a superb game for Leeds.
Yeah,
I can't deny that.
Cut you off talking about Fran Goldthorpe there, though. Sorry, Al.
Sorry. No, it's all right. It's all right. Yeah. So I think it was. She hadn't played that many games actually when at the Challenge Cup final, and she didn't. As you said, it was a game of kind of many errors at Bolton, and the conditions didn't exactly play to their strengths. But she really burst through in this game and really. Shown up really well, I thought, and I was absolutely delighted for her. It's a real achievement.
Yeah, we've talked a bit about Courtney Hill. I want to mention Hannah Butcher because I think she was equally as good as Courtney Hill in this game. I mean, that delayed pass for the first try, and whilst who was it pointing out? Dr. Bob was right. I don't know why Etok went for the corner. She had Beavers on her inside who was going to go under the post. Yeah. But she scored the try, so you can't argue too much. But that pass from Butcher for that, and I do think she was as much of a controlling influence as Courtney Hill was, and it was noticeable. A couple of the key players for the Cass side picked up knocks in the game. It seemed like it looked like Georgia Roach was limping quite a bit at times, struggling to get through, really trying her hardest. But some of those Cass players kind of take it on themselves. From watching them this year in the two big finals, whereas every other time you've seen them, they've been scoring loads of tries. In the two big finals, where they've come up against a tough Leeds defence, they've started to go a little bit one out, and they scored the tries through passing plays in the first half. They weren't playing that kind of way once Leeds kind of got a little bit on top, which I think meant that they were moving away from what was their biggest strength, which was their getting the ball around rather than individual moments in individual runs and that sort of stuff. Because the Rhinos had the faster side as far as I was concerned, and probably little knocks to Roach and Stanley that it looked like they weren't as fit and flying as maybe the Rhino side. The other player that we've not pulled out, I thought was really good for the Rhinos, was Amy Staveley in the second row. There was a period in the second half where for 3 or 4 sets in a row she had at least 2 carries per set. She really did. When we can talk about how physical this game was, she was the most physical person out there, I thought, for the Rhinos in attack and defence. So I wanted to mention her as well.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say I do feel a little bit, because I've only seen Castleford twice this year, and that they're both finals, and I feel like I've missed out in terms of seeing some of their attacking flair. But maybe I'm just a bad luck charm. I don't know.
David, any final thoughts from you on that game and how it looked, how it came across on the TV?
Only that I thought it looked really well on the TV, Mark. I thought it came across well, and I really enjoyed the game. That's the first time I've watched a ladies' game on the television like that, and I thought it came across well. It was a good game. I did notice the chilled shirt, but it was my second favourite shirt, because Holly Dodd's shirt on the TV looked like it just said "ooh" across the back. For some reason, the D's looked like O's as well. It was that was my favourite shirt. But I thought it was very impressive. Clearly the ladies have come a huge way in a pretty short period of time for playing at this sort of level, and I'm sure there are, as with football and other women's sports like cricket, that are really taking getting a lot more profile now. I'm sure it's going to get better and better.
And I think these kids that are in the top sides at the moment will be around potentially for years to come, and they'll become more polished, and a couple of aspects of skill like catching, like kicking, will definitely swing around as those girls get to play more minutes, get to play more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not inconceivable that they might play for another 15 years. That's perfectly reasonable.
Well, we saw former England and former Wigan captain. Her name's escaping my head now. Gemma Walsh, didn't we, at the game?
Gemma, yeah.
And she's older than me, so. And there's not that many rugby players now that are. I think she's 36, 37. I don't want to do a disservice, but she's in her mid to late 30s now. And she's been playing at the top level even until this season, and she captained the grand final side last season. So it does show that, some of these kids could have 20... Someone like Georgia Roach could have 20 years ahead of it. And boy, will she be able to control the game and organise her thoughts a lot better in 20 years than now at 18, 19-year-old.
It's such an advancing... it's advancing so quickly, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. One other thing.
Yes.
On the television coverage, and it was delightful to hear Tony Ray commentating again. I've always had a huge amount of time for his insight into the game and his sort of no-nonsense commentary on rugby, and he was far better for me than anything I heard commentating on the men's grand final.
Fair enough. That's helpful for us to move into the men's grand final, though, and time for the Tour de Smug from David as we talk about St Helens' victory over Salford. It finished 23 points to 6 to the Saints' side. It was 12-6 at half time, so they dominated out that second half with Salford not able to score. 64,102 was the crowd. Chris Kendall was the referee, for anyone who didn't know that. In terms of the stats on this one, the team stats say that the only one of the key numbers we're able to focus on from the Super League website stats that St Helens didn't have the better of was successful offloads, with Salford making more than twice as many as Saints did, but they made more breaks, more tackle busts, fewer errors, fewer errors made, fewer penalties conceded, better team tackle success rate, better average gain, and 365 more metres, all underlined that St Helens were the better side in this game. Individually, the Harry Sunderland winner Luke Thompson starts this with 42 tackles, some sort of double figures marker tackles that I've missed off the second one, so let's say 11 marker tackles or so, and 188 metres. Zeb Taylor, 1 try, 156 metres. Tommy Makinson, 166 metres, and plenty of those were made with only one shoulder. Morgan Knowles, 1 try, 49 tackles, 14 of which were marker tackles. For the losing Salford side, there were still some standout efforts to talk about. We'll go through these. George Griffin, 57 tackles, 11 of which were marker tackles. Certainly used all the energy he could in his final Salford appearance. Lee Mossop, 49 tackles, 13 of which were marker tackles. Ken Seo, 158 metres, and on the other wing, Kristen Inu, 5 tackle busts and 150 metres. Alan, do you want to start us on the first of the fan views?
Yep, so another gloater. We've got Frogmore. Saints versus Devils, good versus evil. In the end, the good guys won. There's your fairy tale finish.
Well sold, Frogs.
I'll take the next one for you. EFC78JU said, what can go more worse than St Helens winning the title? Looking forward to the 2020 season for the Wire. There you go.
Everton fan. What can I say? Alan Walker says, better team won, and Kendall made sure they did. Alan, come on. The NRL will be pleased that they'll have their case against one ref games. So, honestly, some great skill on show, though. It'll be the last trophy Holbrook we'll have for a while, so I hope he takes it all in.
Can't disagree with that one though. Jen K says, great night for the sport, brilliant atmosphere from both sets of fans. Salford fans stayed long after the final whistle. As for the game, Salford gave a much better go of it than Castleford did 2 years ago. As a Wigan fan, I never want to see a Saints win, but they fully deserved it. Please for Justin Holbrook.
Mark Butler said, we can all agree the best team has won. This is straight from the pages of No Shit magazine, I know. Salford still deserve a lot of credit. They barely got a sniff for most of this, but to still be in the game an hour in took a hell of an effort. Kendall is getting the social media kicking. This is OTT, but the timing of 2 bad decisions against Salford did snuff out any last chance of a comeback.
Carsten says Saints were the better team on the night, but the referee would be the talking point because the choice was influenced by salty old something chairman.
Mike Dodd 22. Oh no, that's Alan. Go on, Alan. Sorry.
Mike Dodd says, watched the last 50 minutes or so of this in a hotel bar in Greece, which had a very stop-start feed. From what I gather, Salford were deserved winners. Congratulations to them.
Well done, Mike. That's a good one.
Lee Whitnell said, the best team all year don't always get their reward come grand final night. This year they did. Fair play.
POB 1976 says St Helens deserved the win against a spirited Salford team. Each Salford player should hold their heads up high for what's been an amazing season.
Fatboy Rob says, very entertaining game for the neutral. Both sets of fans added to events, and the Salford fans stayed till the very end. Despite what I've read on Twitter, I thought Kendall did all right. The try disallowed for obstruction was at my end and looked 100% correct in real time. I'll be there again next year for Cass versus Toronto. Hashtag GSTQ.
That's another one, I've no idea. No.
Rich Wilkinson said, Salford were spirited but didn't have enough on the night and came away with too many errors at critical times. Saints looked shaky early on but were making easy meters which led to points. Not a classic final for the neutral, but good to see Salford not get hammered. It was an interesting contest for a solid hour. So David, we'll start with you. Give us your first of all, give us your reflections on the day. Talk about how you build